Moving on to the next observation on our industry. This is still taught at marketing schools around the world, that basically you're supposed to, of your total marketing budget, spend 80% on the distribution of your message and 20% on production and creation. One of the things that, again, I would throw into the mix is, surely in the digital age we're moving into, that's going to be completely reversed. Clients are going to have to create a lot more content, but the cost of distribution is reducing dramatically. So I believe that we might be entering a world where the marketing rulebook needs to be reframed and flipped completely. I don't know, Martin, I don't know how this stuff is taught to marketers all over,
So I agree with the fact that we both disagree with this. So we're disagreeing with the rule.
Yeah.
So, because we're trying to be controversial, right? No, but I agree with that. I think there's a real issue with that. The definitions and classifications, and this is a real pet peeve of mine, they just don't apply anymore, right? I mean, at the moment for Budweiser World Cup, we're running a thing called the Bud House. That's a content production piece that runs on, it's a reality show that you can see on a dedicated YouTube channel. You can see it on Facebook, you can see it on budunited.com. And so it's produced by Ridley Scott and Associates. So it's not a cheap thing that we're producing, but if I would classify to the 80-20 rule, that would be in the 20 rule probably, but it's not 20%. I mean, it's significant, more than that. Agencies are sometimes judged by clients on working versus non-working, and then that is usually translated to the 80-20 or even more than that. I can't tell you in the Bud House what exactly is working or non-working money to that old definition, and so my finance people get very nervous about that, but I can't help them. We just need to come up with a new classification. I hate the whole boxing of things or classification of things. Any kind of mix around budget, production versus media versus digital versus whatever idea, when you've done all the work, and hopefully it's been good work and it's worked really well, then look at the mix as an outcome of that process. Don't give it as an input into the process of saying, I want so much of this, and then I want a little bit of that, and then do me a little bit of that, and by the way, your production budget can't be more than 20%. This is just crazy.
I mean, Mark, you must find working in digital production, you must have embarrassed a few agencies by being able to produce a lot more content than perhaps, that they could on behalf of their client. And
it does happen, and the thing we did last year, Carousel, that won the Film Grand Prix, was a perfect example of that, where the agency said, we've got this TV that we want to sell. We could apportion the money across lots of different segments, but instead what we're going to do is just do something online. And I think the media spend for that was quite minimal, but because it was such a sort of shareable piece of work, and because people wanted to see it, the media spend was immaterial in the end. People found a way to see it. I think in talking about the 80-20 split, the sort of institutionalization of that really annoys me, because I think of it in a slightly different way, which is that the 80% is actually almost insurance against doing mediocre work sometimes. So if you have an agency or an industry that judges things on impressions, maybe sometimes that's the end goal, is to just make impressions. The creativity falls by the fore in that, because you've got your 100%, you're going to spend 80 on media, you've made sure that people have seen it, and you don't have to interrogate the creativity to a certain extent. You don't have to live up to it. And I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that's exactly the right way to approach it, is you determine your ratio and you determine your split based on the story that you're trying to tell and based on the channels that you want to tell it in. But I feel like frustrated sometimes, because I feel like we're a long way away from that.
We are. But any advertiser that thinks that they can GRP their way out of a bad piece of copy or online impressions their way out of a bad website, it just doesn't work that way. So I used to work with a creative guy who used to say, a dog is a dog is a dog. And no matter how many times you try and sell it as a cat, it's never going to be a cat, it's always a dog.
But John, this also suggests that you're going to have to produce a lot more content, a lot faster, and presumably at a reasonable cost. And certainly what I'm seeing and hearing is we want more time, and it's going to cost you more money to do it. So, I think there's a bit of a wake-up call for that in terms of how do we get a lot of content produced into these channels at a reasonable price quickly.
Nowadays, with these new days, I don't believe more in global campaigns. I believe in global ideas that you adjust to each market, to each reality of the country. So you have to look at the country and discover the rule of the country, the rule of this idea in that country. You have to look at that, because it's not about defined percentage, but it's about the correct percentage.
Can I say one more thing about
Please do.
percentages and boxes, and because it is a real pet peeve of mine. So one other thing that I just really want to make clear is that I think and I think you talked about it a little bit earlier, we should also get out of this whole idea of, television is dead, long live digital, let's go from on-air to online, let's go from analog to digital. I think the most difficult thing that we face as an industry, agencies, clients alike, is the choice process. How do we make the right choices, start with the consumer, try and understand them, and then go into a choice process? And if there's a conscious, well thought through, based on facts and gut feel and all sorts of other stuff, you end up with mix A, B, C, D, or 20, 15, whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine. It shouldn't be a defined thing.